There was a time not long ago when it was safe to chastise your government. The opposition leadership, the respect of the Prime Minister and President. Now we have a tyrannical democracy where misplaced priority creates abject poverty. To oppose government policy is living dangerously. So now truth is a sin, and lies and deception are the virtues now trending. If I say the government in my land don't care for the local man, I'm a wanted man. Simple truth. If I say my green Dominica has been bequeathed to Red China, I'm a wanted man. Simple truth. If I say Parliament has become a comedy competition, I'm a wanted man. Wanted for speaking truth, wanted for caring about the youth, wanted for wanting fairness in my land. So I'd much rather be a wanted man than to be a yes man to a godless, corrupt politician. They've hired bounty hunters and character assassins on the radio. Never before have we ever seen a little money make Jumbie dance so. Men of faith selling away their blessings. Parents trading the future of their children. Fortune spent to persecute the innocent. Elimination of opposition and foreign investment. That's politics in these times. If I say law enforcement is blind to the real criminals in these times, I'm a wanted man. Simple truth. If I say the businessmen of this land are afraid of one man, I'm a wanted man. Simple truth, simple truth. If I say that one man fools most of the people all the time, I'm a wanted man. Wanted for speaking truth, wanted for caring about the youth, wanted for wanting fairness in my life. So I'd much rather be a wanted man.
Love to use it as the link.
All right, that is where we want to say a special greetings, a special welcome to all of you locked into that space at this time. It is already 7 minutes past the good old hour of 6 o'clock right here in Dominica and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. That is the space in which we live, the 14th day of January 2024. And yes, folks, nice to have you on board this afternoon. Those of you who are already here, we thank you very much for that. The we, that is, the we from Civic Vibes, that is. Folks, we are here and we are well oiled, that is, and ready to go. And so we have this afternoon a very interesting program lined up for you guys out there. And we ask you right about now at this time, please just share that live information, let someone know that that program is on, and we will be on till about the 8 o'clock hour tonight. Alvin Thomas is here. Brother Zed Lloyd is here. Zed Lloyd is no longer a guest on this program. He's part of us. So we'll be introducing these two gentlemen to you in just a while. Folks, the conversation this evening we're going to have is coming off from the heels of a very, very informative program with Brother Anil Roberts out of Trinidad and Tobago, talking about democracy, talking about free and fair elections that was held in Dominica. First of the bat, let me see. Thank you very much. Very appreciative to the folks in Dominica who basically made this happen. We thank you very, very much indeed, where we had Anil Roberts in Dominica, basically re-echoing or concretizing the point that before any election is called in the future in Dominica, we really need that space to be freer and fairer indeed. So guys, yes, let me now move across to Brother Alvin Thomas without further ado and say greetings and welcome, Brother Thomas.
Yes, Lofty, good afternoon, my friend, my brother. Good to see you. Start of another program for 2024. And of course, my family there, Brother Zed Lloyd in the heart of New York City.
Yeah, brother.
It's what? It's like 20 degrees or 30 degrees?
No, it's kind of nice today, actually. Yesterday was really brutal in DC.
I know, man. I know. Yesterday was brutal for us, but today we're in the upper 50s, so not bad at all.
Yeah.
But yes, a pleasant good afternoon to all those who have already logged in. And like Lofty say, our brother Zed he's no longer a guest. He's part of the program. Lofty, what I can say is that, like you, I listened to the program with Brother Anil Roberts from the opposition senator in Trinidad and Tobago. And I must say that the event, in my view, was, I would say, very successful in terms of the presentations, the participation, and all of that. But we have to do more than that. We have to take it beyond a successful presentation. And I think this year, 2024, as I've said to one or two of my friends, must be the year of reckoning. Let us not forget, Lofty, back in 2022, to be exact, July of 2022, the CCJ, which is the creme de creme of the successful presentation, made some very, very, very striking comments about our electoral process in Dominica. And not only did they make comments, they sort of pushed us and tell us, hey guys, you must do something about it. So yes, Brother Senator Anil Roberts did a fantastic presentation. But all of that has been contained in that CCJ document. Going in a few months again will be 2 years this year. So the question remains is that, how are we going to give action to all those words? Whether it's from Anil Roberts, whether it's from the CCJ, whether it's from NJAM, whether it's from Civic Vibes on this program, how are we going to give action to those words? And I think this year, in my view, I'm hoping, should be an action year. So again, a pleasant good afternoon. Look forward to an interesting conversation. And let's, as I say, let's find a way to be more action-oriented, while at the same time having a conversation, but to take some very decisive action on the ground.
All right. Yes, indeed, Alvin. I cannot concur with you any greater. You said it basically as it is. And thank you, my brother, for your opening statements here. I am indeed in agreement with everything that you said thus far. The dire need that is for a freer and fairer space in Dominica where elections, general elections at that is concerned. And so again, I want to place on record on behalf of Civic Vibes our thank you or appreciation to former Senator Mr. Anil Roberts out of Trinidad and Tobago for coming to Dominica and basically giving us that booster, as it were, in terms of his utterances. Again, we want to thank the organizers of that event, all the persons, all the organizations that came together and made it happen. Thank you you guys, you could take a bow on this one. Folks, yes, this evening, the conversation that we're going to have is about, we're continuing on that conversation. It is about our electoral process in Dominica. And we have topicked this evening's conversation to be elections with integrity require both freedom and fairness. Again, let me repeat the topic for tonight's conversation, which reads, elections with integrity require both freedom and fairness. A lot of times in Dominica, when we hear about elections, we only hear about, example, the freedom part. The fairness part is where we are lagging behind. And that is why, as Alvin said, the year of 2024 should be that watershed year or that reckoning year as it pertains to that space, making it much more free, making it much more fair, making it much more transparent. And I always say it boils down to we, the people. All right, folks, we know a number of you guys already here. We'll get to you in just a while in terms of mentioning some of your names. But let me just move across to my brother here, brother Zed Lloyd. My brother, you look very, very presidential this afternoon. So what's your occasion, Zed?
Yo, well, it's that kind of weekend. I was in presidential land, this weekend, we went to stand up for Palestine and justice. And, so it was that kind of weekend. It was cold, but it was good. A couple of million people showed up. It was history, It's the first time Americans have really engaged on Palestine in that kind of, but it was unprecedented. So it was nice. It was nice. It was cold, really cold. I'm telling you, it's wind chill. But the millions stood out. They didn't leave. They just braved the weather for justice. So that was great. Lofty, over the weekend, I had an interesting moment. I went to a home, and this parent was teaching the kid some homework. And they were teaching the kid multiplication. And she was like, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6. And she's trying to get into the kid's head. And she's like, just memory. And the kid is like, oh, man, and she's doing so much intensity. And I'm there, I'm listening, and I know it's the wrong approach, And I tried staying out of it. But after a while, I couldn't. So I said to her, can you see 3 times 2? And she was like, the parent was like, what do you mean, can she see 3 times 2? I said, but you're trying to teach her something, but the way you're teaching her, you're not paying attention to whether she is actually seeing 3 times 2. And we closed the book, Lofty, and we talked for a minute or two. And after about 3 minutes, she understood 3 times 2. So you could give her 4 times, you could give her 20 times 100. Doesn't matter what you give her, she understood. And so I take this to lead into the idea of process. Like a lot of times we want solutions, but we want the solution so badly that we almost do it arrogantly. And so arrogance sometimes can work, but when you are primal state, like a little kid, like a small mind, arrogance is the worst approach. And in many sort of ways, Dominica is primal politically still in many ways. Dominica is like a kid politically. We should not have been there because we have passed that stage politically in the past, but we have returned to primacy politically. We've returned to this emotional concept of politics, irrational concept of politics, all those things that relate to that same kid and 3 times 2. And so brothers like you and a whole lot who have been there really trying and trying and trying. But part of our failure in Dominica has been our process. We do not sit back and question analysis and look at what is the path of least resistance to solving the problem. And always you have to choose the path of least resistance when you're problem solving, if you want to really solve the problem, especially if you want to solve it efficiently and quickly. And I remember when Lennox went into politics, Lofty, just to show you what I'm trying. And I was up here and I introduced Lennox and I was very happy because I knew Lennox. But if I was in Dominica, Lofty, I would have told Lennox, stay in the program. We'll take on Roosevelt Skerritt earlier. You see, because the program and what it was doing and where it was going, it was the right thing that we needed, and it was not aligned politically. And so from the time Lennox jumped into the ring, he went to play the game on Roosevelt Skerritt's playing field. You cannot play the enemy in their playing field. You have to set your own field, Lofty. You have to set your parameters, choose your quotients, choose your line of approach for you to succeed. And we have not been doing that in Dominica politically. We have been on an anti-spirit agenda, a personalization of politics that is not working, and it's not working because the very people that we need to reach, they are disillusioned by that approach. And so when you started the New Year and Civic Vibes, we sat and we talked about doing solutions. And man, I'm like, yes. Because you see, it's solutions we have to start doing, not scare it, not blackmail, not solutions. And so here in this idea of electoral reform, we have to take a different approach. We have to take a non-political approach in as much as this thing is political. A non-political approach. And the civic entity is what has been missing. Even the civic organizations, even like, you know, the concerned citizens. Concerned citizens has lost its mission. It has lost its mission. It has become a quasi-political institution instead of being a civic organization engaged in civic engagement. You see? And so if we're going to deal with this thing right now, electoral reform and beyond, we have to take a new approach. We have to take a new approach because the approach that we've been taking has not been working. It is not engaging the people that we need to engage in a compromising and comforting manner. You understand? So as we go into this conversation today, I want to deal a lot with the responsibility of us, the responsibility of self, not the responsibility of others and this. We always outward. Let us look internally a little bit in the consciousness of the struggle. That is where I want to veer a bit as we go along the road today, Lofty. Give thanks.
All right, Zed. Yeah. Give thanks. Thank you very much indeed, my brother. You put a lot on our plate there thus far. Zed, Zagi Faustin is asking, what is the non-political approach? Think about that, Zed, in terms of a response, and then we'll get back to you in just a bit, all right? But let us just run through some names there very quickly, Alvin, before we get into the meat of things here. Jasid Leroy James, you're listening and watching. Carla Guy, Mali Austri, Jeffrey Brisbane, my brother Alistair Irish, good evening. Jan Joseph, Mali Austri, Marvella Defoe, Rosa Robinson, Adelaide Joseph, Justina James, James Carm, Irvin Wayne Rossi, good evening to you guys out there. Jan Harry, Cecilia Bedminster, Ramona St. Rose, Brother Raphael, that is Cyrus Raphael, Marlin Shillingford, you're also there. Adelaide Joseph, we also have Joan Felix Sylvester, Olivia Esprit, who else? Everlasting Peter, Claudette Dura, S.J. Valentine, Magdalene Augustine, Dory Drago, Bernard Ulysses, Althea Rennie, Brother Julius Corbett, Ivenia Joseph, Lafoy, Julian, Dave Bertrand, John Alfred, not Teresa, Theodore, sorry, Anthony, Dorian, Dorival, Ferdinand Lawrence, Simeon, George, Alvin, who else? Can we run through that list? The rest of it.
Yeah, we got Medina Senhouse as well. Medina Senhouse is there. We have Jess Vivel, we have Zagi Faustin, and we have Claudia Carlton, Claudette Lendo, Dorothy David, Serge Resnet, Viva Mamo, Veronica Pascal. So we have quite a few folks in addition to the ones that you called out earlier, by Vinia Joseph.
There's one name. There's one name that showed up there this evening. Dorothy T. David. That young lady. Nice to have you this evening, Dorothy. Good evening as well. All I want to say, good evening.
Was that one of our guests in the future?
Yes, she was there before. I
think I recalled. Yes, I recalled. Yes.
Not normally always with us, but whenever she shows up, you have to pay that kind of respect.
We have Mildred
Gerald
Chance
Dorset,
as well.
Brother Serge Resnet. I will get back to you after the program in terms of response, brother. But for sure, Alvin, Zed, this evening program, we primarily deal in the electoral reform aspect, the freeness and fairness of elections. But tied up in that as well is some things that have been plaguing our country, especially the poor health care situation. And so we'll be sort of dovetailing in just, before the program comes to an end. We'll be hearing from Brother Dale Dangleben. Yeah. We'll be hearing from the Minister of Health, that is Kasani Laville. And we'll also be reading the memo that came out from the hospital administration in terms of, you know, the lack thereof, which we have been talking about for a number of years now. And so we'll be touching on that sometime later. Now, that for sure ties in where corruption prevails, and corruption usually prevails in a society that where elections are not free and fair. So everything is well tied up this evening indeed. Viva Mamo as well is saying, and the sign behind him. Viva Mamo is recognizing your sign, Zed, Free Palestine. Zed, just give us, before we go into the conversation, give us an idea of, you know, how the setup was in DC this morning, the match that you attended.
Well, yeah, it was yesterday. Well, you
it
see,
was yesterday.
Yeah,
okay.
For a long time, the anti, you know, Zionist, the pro-Palestinian process has been one of a violent front, and though necessary, it has also become a liability. And Palestinian Americans and the whole Muslim fraternity have realized that it's time for a new approach. That maybe we need to take a page from Dr. King and look at the struggle for a non-violent process, and in a way that can feel more inclusive to even Jews and to other regular people, contemporaries, conservatives, and so like. And so, yes. Yesterday was a process of launching the initiative on the Martin Luther King weekend. The event was organized within that weekend for a specific reason, to coincide with Dr. King and his whole message of nonviolence, and to bring a new front to this movement for liberation in Palestine. And so it was in a sense the launching of a non-violence approach to solving the issue over there. And that was what was very important about it. And in some ways, it's related to us, where I say, sometimes you have to stop and reassess your process if you want to succeed. And so in the Palestinian struggle, that's essentially what yesterday reflected, where a movement stopped and looked at its process and realized we need to take a different approach in order that we can get the rest of the world. No more bombing of planes, no more this of that, no more thing that labeling us terrorists. A different approach where we can become part of the table and the conversation. And so that was what yesterday was really about, linking it to nonviolence, the King, and the movement for a broader gathering globally to challenge this situation and bring an end to this injustice in Gaza. And so, the lesson for us in there is about process. Yeah. About process. Same thing in struggle. We in Dominica need a change of process for us to succeed.
Indeed. Well, Zed, what is very striking to me is that the world is watching on and seeing a number of persons from Palestine being killed, innocent people that is on a daily basis, my friend. Yeah. Children, mothers, fathers, families, and it is just so sad. It is just so sad. I heard the Pope.
It is. And Lofty, you know what is sad? I won't take too much of our time, but you know what is sad? Especially I come from the Caribbean, you know, and we weren't represented yesterday, and we weren't represented because we as a people, Lofty, religiously, no, today's not for that, man. Let's continue.
All right, let's continue. Marceline Edwards, good evening to you. Brother Gerald Dorset, good evening. Phoebe Jones, good evening. Bruni Scotty, Veronica Pascal, those of you tuned in a bit late, good evening to you guys. Alvin, as we get into the conversation or really the topic for tonight's conversation, what do you want to set on the plate as we move forward, Alvin?
Well, I hear my brother Zed, and yes, I understand what he's saying in terms of the approach, and it's like going to war. You have to evaluate your strategy, and if the strategy is not working, you adjust accordingly. I agree with that. But I had the benefit of visiting Dominica last month, and I spent about 2 weeks on island. And the reason why I did that is because I'm up here contributing to the program, but I wanted to go down on the ground and get a feel for myself. And I decided to go along there, and I decided to go around the Christmas holiday because I wanted to go around a time just to get a sense as to what was it like economically and all of that. And I must say it was quite interesting, an interesting visit. Of course, it was a difficult decision for my family because my wife thought I was crazy, leaving them around Christmas and going to Dominica to do what? Grandkids all gang up against me. Oh, Papa, where you going? But like I always say, I asked for some spiritual intervention, and the spiritual intervention came back and said, you should go. And it brought me there and brought me back safely. And as I said, it was very interesting. I had the opportunity to speak with a number of persons. I would respect that private conversation by not disclosing who, but I spoke with folks on both sides of the fence. Both sides. I met you, Lofty, we had our conversation, and several other persons. And I think what needs to happen in Dominica, there has to be this year a certain level of braveness and boldness. Because even when we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King and being nonviolent and all of that, there was a certain level of braveness that went with it, to the extent that he didn't mind getting arrested several times, to the extent that the late John Lewis was battered, bloodied, and beaten up. There needs to be a certain of boldness and braveness. I got a sense from the conversation that I had and just walking through the country that there is a strong fear, F-E-A-R, permeating over the country. And one might argue, well, they understand that because the question of retribution and victimization is so real that people are afraid. People are afraid to even see them having a conversation with somebody else for fear that it goes back and say, hey, Lofty's a liberate, you know, or Lofty supporting them now, or they buy Lofty. That's their fear. And then I sense there is a lack of hope, hopelessness. Even those who are supposed to be in the so-called quote-unquote, the bomb CO or whatever it is, there is also a sense of hopelessness. And those are the lowest strata, even a more sense of hopelessness. And what I saw also is that, and mark me, I agree with Anil Roberts, this country is a beautiful country, beautiful country, beautiful, lot of potential. You have a lot of, I notice, and maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me, Lofty, I see a lot of rum shops. So alcohol is really, really being dispensed like, you know, like water. And then you have some of the young men that, you know, smoking the ganja because now they can smoke a spliff without being charged or anything like that. So that is what I see. But I see potential. I see potential, Lofty. Lots of potential. Lots of potential. But there must be a sense of boldness and braveness. And that's why whenever I'm on this program, I always make the appeal to those who are in a position to not just talk, but to act. To him, much is given, much is expected. All these legal minds we have in Dominica, they should by now be able to launch a legal challenge against his administration on a number of areas. Are you telling me for the last 20 or so years, there's nothing illegal that this government has done that warrants a challenge in the court of law? Okay, here's the argument. Well, if you go to court takes whatever. But hey, that's where we got to go for now. Otherwise, we can take two courses of action. We can either decide to go on that course, or we could take matters in our own hand, as we saw what happened in Scotts and Soufriere, where this guy just rejected the laws and took matters in his hand. So I'm saying what I think we need is a certain level of boldness and braveness moving forward, and calling on those in the society who are yet to come out and speak and take action, that this year is the year where we need to hear from you. We need to see you acting on matters that affect not just the people, it will in some shape or form affect you as well. You're not going to escape it.
All right, Alvin, thank you very, very much indeed. Zed, any comments based on what our brother Alvin said?
Well, Alvin's right. I mean, in many regards. I mean, there is an issue of a lack of hope, you know. And if the situation that you're up against has destroyed your sense of hope, then it has destroyed your sense of organization. it has destroyed your sense of objectivity to be able to plan your solution to the problem that is facing you, and so you're weakened. But I all think at the same time there is an opportunity. Again, like I said, it's about process. There's an opportunity, but we have to approach it indirectly for us to exploit that opportunity. You see, in that sense of hopelessness, there is an emotional potential that is there. And nothing is greater struggle than emotional potential. But to get to emotional potential, you have to reach the person. And if that barricade of politics is there, you cannot reach that person. You cannot reach them, Lofty, especially in a polarized society. So that is why I say, as we move into 2024 and we move into this thing, let us test a different process. Let us test a different approach, one that is more civic entwined than politically entwined. And I think Civic Vice has started doing that in the new year, and others need to follow. And I like the idea that these brothers as a group got together, Mackenzie and these others, and Pastor Rodney and the others, and got somebody there. We need more than that. Bring others. Bring political leaders too. Bring political leaders too. Because you see, there is a cadre in the Caribbean, a sort of a hegemony of leadership that is more concerned with the maintenance of a party structure than liberation of the people of the Caribbean. And so we need to bring leaders to speak. We need to put them on the podium and question objectively so that we can have them when they do these kind of meetings. They have to be careful on what they say. They have to be very conscious that we are aware of who they are, you know, and open them out. We have places like St. Kitts. We have good relationship with these people. Let's get some of these leaders down to Dominica. Let them come and speak. Let's get economic leadership. St. Kitts especially has a good example of economic. Let us find that economics minister. Let them speak. It's not just electoral reform. I wish we had taken an approach of transformation of our constitution. I wish that was the approach we had taken over this 20 years. I wish that is what we had put effort behind. You understand? Because the problem is in our constitution. When a constitution allows a prime minister to call election at any time he wants without consulting anybody, there is something wrong with that constitution. And I know some fundamentalist people who think the constitution is absolute. And that is utter madness. The constitution is a creation of man, Lofty. And within the realms of creating things of man, there is good and there is bad. You know? So we have to have a certain measure I think hatred is too strong the word, but in a sense we have to have a sort of indignation to certain aspects of our constitution and be disrespectful towards them because they are not in our interest. And so things like the issue of allowing the prime minister to call election we have to stop respecting it as because it is in the constitution. We have to see it as something that we need to change urgently, much more than just electoral reform. So that is what I want us to capture out of that thing. There's a bigger umbrella, and if we use the umbrella, I think we will get more people under the banner.
You think we'll get more people under that banner, Zed? Zed, yes. in terms of responding to this 14 person's point that was raised earlier about your idea of a non-political approach, any suggestion, solution coming from in that regard?
Well, after you've been traveling the region, you know, you traveled the region. You went to Antigua. You went to the other place. You've been more than anybody else in Dominica, I think, trying to make that regional connectivity. And what has been the common thread, Lofty, in all those regional institutions? They have not political institutions, have they? Mm-hmm. Have they?
Yes.
They have not even been quasi-political. Mm-hmm. You understand? And they have worked. So it's not Zed that is reinventing the wheel, you know. I'm just dealing with that. Like I say, when you do a problem, you have to sit down and give the problem analysis. Because if you don't give it analysis, you cannot give objective solution. Well, what is the analysis? The empirical evidence is there. Antigua, all of them go on. You see how it worked. A strong and solid civic organization was able to bring a government to its halt and give the people electoral reform. a strong and solid civic organization. And our process has been launched on a political sort of a reactionary kind of thing, and it has never veered to where it needs to be. It has never veered to where it needs to be. People want everybody to answer politically. People on queue, they question you, they challenge you once you're not of that political persuasion. It is the over political persuasion that is hindering this movement, Lofty. It is the biggest liability, and we need to reset. We need to reset. So when I talk about the non-political, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah. I was just asking you, so what are some of your concrete solutions that you're putting forward?
Well, as Alvin said, all the things we have to do have already been outlined, from the CCG on down to everything, But we cannot get caught in the over-focus of just primarily electoral reform. And especially when our premise is based on electoral reform argument that says an opposition will win if we have electoral reform. That is not our argument as a civic organization to be making. You see, as a civic organization, the political result is not your concern. Your concern is justice to nation. That is your concern. You see, and so to launch the argument from as well, we go because no, from the time you fall into that, you're already alienating the people that you need to coalesce with for this thing to work. So we've been placing roadblocks, not ill-intentioned. I mean, it's not ill-intentioned. But if we're going to lead a civic entity, we have to plan properly in our mind as to what the relationship is on Dominica. And Alvin went there and he told you what he saw. So the level of polarization in Dominica is real. And so if we're going to develop a solution to the process by being a more civic-centered entity, we have removed some of the resistance and some of the negativity that is going to become our problem.
Yeah. And
so it's not new things.
I agree with you 110% on the point that you're making, in that we as Dominicans, we need to look at Dominica first. Remove those political blinders. And when we do things for Dominica, looking at putting Dominica, making Dominica center stage, it will yield much greater results in the interest of all. For example, whenever we hear, and that is one of the reasons why I think we are still at this juncture, a freer and fairer process that would you keep mentioning for elections in Dominica. Whenever we hear about electoral reform or electoral matters in Dominica, it is always usually from the political prism, from the political lens, or from a political lens. So in our situation in Dominica, when Labour Party speaks about electoral reform, you are hearing a certain narrative. When the United Workers' Party speak about electoral reform, you are hearing a certain narrative. When persons in the opposition speaks about, other than United Workers' Party, speaks about electoral reform, you are hearing a certain narrative. And that to me presents a problem by itself, in that the party hacks, they don't want to release for the order, so that at the end of the day, you have one against the order or three against one, and you always have that tug of war. And I take your point, Zed, in that whole process that we have been trying to get off the ground for some time. In my mind, it was supposed to be much more civic-minded people at the head, at the helm of that thrust for freer and fairer elections. And so even the Electoral Commission, this set of people, to me, they are, when I put it down under Loftus-Dura's microscope, the only person inside that composition of members, it is supposed to be the chairman of that commission. That chair whoever he or she is, supposed to be that neutral person right there. But we know how it's set up. And so you have the composition of the opposition parties put their people there, the government incumbency put their people there, and you're supposed to have a neutral arbiter right there. But we know how it's set up in Dominica, so let's not even, play as if we don't know. So I am saying that tug of war, it will always continue because you have political minded persons trying to solve problems to deal with electoral matters that is supposed to be for all Dominicans, not from a party standpoint. And so, Zed, I took your point very well in that when yours truly was the president of the Concerned Citizen Movement, that head, it was level-headed enough to know that the electoral reform thrust that movement at the time was pushing, wanted on behalf of the people of Dominica. It was that and that alone. And so that is why I am saying there was this greater expectation. There was this greater push. There was this greater energies out there because it was leading in a particular direction which was non-partisan in nature. For whatever reason, some know, some don't know, I am no longer at the helm of that organization. And so I am doing what I have to do from my corner to still push for free and fair elections in Dominica. But I am saying that the process in which you keep repeating tonight, that process has been aborted somewhere. And so when you hear certain persons speak about that electoral matter, it is to set up one and pull down the other. And that is not supposed to be the narrative at all. Anytime you go in there on that premise, you have a problem because you're going to get that resistance from whoever has some dark horses in the game, as it were. And so that is why from early days, from early onslaught, the people that have been speaking in the region on that platform, that citizens platform, basically told us then that electoral reform, it is like any other issue in the country. A matter of fact, they tied it in with as a human right.
Exactly.
And I believe that if that process, as you said, was made to continue on the trajectory in which it was, I don't have a crystal ball, but where it was going, it was already bearing the fruits. And so maybe we wouldn't have been at that juncture today. And so, for example, when a situation like the minimum wage situation in Dominica cannot be tied with free and fair elections, then you have a problem. If,
and it's because of the absence of this.
If, for example, Zed, and I've been talking and talking, but no one is listening. You take 10 people in Dominica and you tell them about electoral reform. At least 3 may listen. You take that same 10 people and you tell them, you know something, your minimum wage, it is tied to the salaries that you get in. It is tied to a freer and fairer process of electoral reform. Out of that 10, 7 may listen to you. And right there you have, you now can strike that balance so that when persons come to push, they know that they're pushing for what is due to them, which is a fairer and fairer process for elections. But at the end of the day, the other parts of their lives will fall in place. But what we have been seeing, very true to conscience said, it is politicians that have been pushing this thing for free and fair elections. And obviously, their surrogates follow, their party hacks follow in the same refrain. And that is where that problem is. And make no bones about it, Zed. I'm not one to give Skerrit kudos, but anybody that would have been in Skerrit's place would have done the same thing. Because if that situation can be so tied up in this back and forth, obviously the time that is being spent there in terms of the back and forth, the incumbent, whoever it is Skerrit today, they are the beneficiaries of that back and forth. And so I'm suggesting finally, if we want to see any headway or make any headway in that electoral reform saga that we have been talking about, we need to get much more civic-minded, level-headed people at the helm of that thrust so that that can be a reality, not just for one, but for all Dominicans.
For all. I agree. That is where we need to go, Lofty. But I'll let Brother Alvin chime in, you know. Yeah.
Well, let me just say, I'm reading the chat and I want to make two references there. Carl Kofi James said the benefit of electoral reform is for the citizens, not the parties. And he went on further to state there that the reform should seek to bring justice where required, amendments where needed. The presentations need to be palatable to all citizens. The reasoning has to be encompass all demographics. You've heard me said before in this program that elections has consequences.
Sure.
And I will continue to use that phrase because once we start discussing this matter of electoral reform in a sort of nebulous sort of thing, then obviously people will not understand what we're talking about. So I agree with that to some extent. We have to, what is the message? How do we bring and drive that message? In any organization, whether it's a company, whether it's a political party, whether it's an NGO, whatever it is, wants to convey a message across, they have to find a way to convey that message to their constituent. So your messaging is important. And I see what you're saying, Lofty, but let us understand that sometimes I kind of get the sense that Dominica might be somewhere from Mars or Jupiter and the rest of the Caribbean is from another planet. Because we've had electoral reform in other countries and it has happened. You know, I mean, time would not permit for us to take each country individually and look at it, but it has taken place. Trinidad, Barbados, Antigua.
Alvin, let me just interject there. For example, take the case of Antigua, because Antigua is a case I've been studying where elections is concerned, Alvin. Do you know, Alvin, that process that Zed keeps talking about tonight for free and fairer elections in Antigua and Barbuda? Do you know what that process entailed? Juxtapose that to us in Dominica.
Yeah, it had a very large input of civic organization in Antigua to the extent where the electoral reform, the electoral commission had a very strong integral role in ensuring that the reform came about. So the point I'm saying, I understand what you're saying. Maybe, and sometimes we have to step forward. I got the challenges and the frustration that you encountered when you were part of the dialogue, but sometimes that is where we sometimes have to step forward.
Alvin, and some of these processes, Alvin, includes in Antigua, for example, and be true to Dominica's situation. Some of these processes included, one, the Elections Commission, that body spearheaded efforts of going out there, bringing along the citizens of the constituencies to workshops, to discussions, to panel discussions. So at the end of the day, Alvin, at the end of the day, the education / information that the people needed to be clarified, they got it from the horse's mouth, as it were. Alvin, I am telling you, Alvin, I am telling you, our electoral commission in Dominica, they are not, capital N-O-T, not interested in that kind of work.
I accept. So let me pose a question. They
have not been doing that kind of work.
Let me pose a question. What do we say or do to the chairman of our election commission in Dominica? What do we say or do to Duncan Stowe? We see him every day walking Roseau or Goodwill. What do we do or say to Duncan Stowe? And the other two persons, we hear Hillary and Wayne at the event on Thursday night at the PSU. What do we say to Duncan Stowe? When we see him, good morning, Mr. Stowe, how are you? You having a nice day? What do we do? Because Duncan Stowe is the chairman. And if Duncan Stowe is not performing as a chairman, what do? We tie our hands behind our back and say there's nothing we can do because Duncan Stowe is the boss and Duncan Stowe says no, so we cannot do anything. What do? I said on this program before, it is not just the politicians themselves, but the enablers. What do we do about the enablers? I mean, I'm not asking the question now. Do we just say, well,
yeah, I understand where you're going.
Yes.
And it is all well and good to target the head of that organization, which is Duncan Stowe in Dominica. But the greater point that I'm driving at, if you don't have, Alvin, an empowered citizen that know what they're about, that know their rights, that know their responsibilities, then you will always get what we have been getting in Dominica for the past many years. So that is why
I'm saying we have to change the narrative and the message. And if the narrative and the message means to go after the chairman of the commission, let's do it. Change the narrative. And embarrass them, as they say when we see them.
How are you proposing that we change the narrative? How
embarrass him when we see him in public.
Who is going to do that embarrassing? Who is going to do that embarrassing?
I mean, it has to start with somebody. Picket in front of his office.
Alvin, I am saying to you, my brother, humbly so, that will only start to happen when the citizens are sufficiently educated, sufficiently employed with the tools that they need, and that retooling have not been done. What we have left that retooling or that process to the political hacks.
So therefore, I am saying again, Lofty, I am saying again, you have NJAM. I don't know what the total composition is. We have concerned citizens. We have now ERC. Of course, both ERC and NJAM have a certain political representation there. But you have those organizations. How do we now shape the retooling that you're talking about? Because the impression I'm getting is that, one, there needs to be a retooling. I agree with you. But the people has to be educated. I agree with you. So having said that, it comes to action now. What do we do? How do we put pressure on the chairman of the commission to get him to act? Or are we just being nice as usual, polite as usual, gentle as usual, and just let it go? And if that's what we're doing, then it will go.
Alvin, I am suggesting to us here tonight, Alvin, the strategy in which we have been operating, what you have been using, have not been working. And Zed said it right from the onset. We need to go back to the drawing board. Alvin, for example, just for example, in a community of my head, let's say La Plaine, have you seen, Alvin, that extra energy for level-headed people to go into La Plaine under the banner of a civic organization, to go into La Plaine and talk to the people under the mango tree, in the bars, by the river, meet these people, press flesh with these people, and talk to these people about the need for a right of theirs, which is the right to vote and the freeness thereof?
Let me answer that question. In the time since we have been having that conversation, okay, and that dialogue, has NJAM, has concerned citizen, And I'm also going to include Civic Vibes or any one of the political parties done any one of those things that you're talking. This is something I have said on this program repeatedly, that we have to get on the ground. When was the last time any one of those organizations did a meeting on the ground? Okay? I was in Dominica last month in connection, as I said, I wanted to go and see for myself. I arrived in Dominica on that Sunday afternoon. On Monday afternoon, I was on Matt's program talking about the Soufriere murder and all of that, and the fact that we want to meet with the Soufriere people on that Tuesday evening. And I went through detail by detail on the court order that was violated. The Tuesday morning, Scary called a press conference. Granted, he may have already done his press conference, but that was the first time he spoke about the murder in Soufriere, Scottshead, the 19th of December. We had this meeting in Scottshead, and one might argue the turnout could have been better. You had quite a few people on the outside, as well a few in the inside. Have we had a follow-up? Have we gone back to that village or gone in any of the other village? So while I agree with you and Zed that the approach and the strategy has to change, I'm saying that we have to be more action-oriented and get on the ground and do the things. And if we have to embarrass the chairman of the commission, let's embarrass him. What his name? Charles Savre went on radio and he said, boycott Breezy Matt, you know, because Jerry Brisbane had said something against the government. And people listen and they boycotted Jerry Brisbane Matt, and the rest is history. They say boycott Suki. So the point I'm saying is that I agree with you. We have to get on the ground. And I'm hoping this year we can have, whether we want to call it town hall meeting, community meeting, grassroots meeting, one-on-one meeting, whatever it is, we got to do it. We keep using Martin Luther as an example. Martin Luther was on the ground. He was in Memphis, Tennessee, Atlanta, you name it, all over the place. Himself and Andrew Young and Jesse Jackson and all these people, they were on the ground. Okay? So I'm saying, I agree with you, the approach has to change, but we have to be action-oriented. And again, maybe Lofty, I hate to put it so, you've been in the process all along, and I commend you for the work you've done on the ground. Maybe this year more is going to be expected of you. More is going to be expected of you now. So whatever you did in 23 or 22, you maybe have to do 3 times.
I am always ready.
And I know that. I know that.
Do whatever
but
I
I'm
have to
saying
do.
We have to get on the ground. We have to be more action-oriented. We have to get to the enablers as well. And sometimes that is the way you can get to the top. You chip at the bottom. You chip the enablers to be able to get at the top.
Alvin,
so that's just my contribution for now. I'll rest my case for now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alvin. It's 7 o'clock, folks. We're going to take a break in just a while. But Zed, you have been listening to the conversation, and I heard all what Alvin said. Pretty good, pretty nice, pretty sweet. But I will say, Zed, in 2024, that strategy, these processes we have been using have not been working, and it may be, I am suggesting it's just time to go back to the drawing board and tweak up things a bit, do things differently, because we are not hitting the bullseye. We are not hitting the target that we are supposed to reach, and the target, it has to be the people, the heart, the soul, the consciousness of the people. Too many times we have been talking in Dominica, but we have been talking to the choir. We have been talking to our base, and we know fully well the base, even if that base is fully activated, that base outside of the people, the wider population, cannot cut it. And so we have now to re-strategize, retool, and reach the greater good of the people, and we will get the desired result. That's all I'm saying.
And Brother Wayne,
for some reason, said your audio
your mic is muffled. Yeah, your mic is a little muffled. You muted. Try again.
And we hear you, but still a bit.
It's kind of muffled, but try again.
All right, Zed, what we're going to do, we're going to take a little break at this time, play some music, and then once you try to get that thing sorted out, all right? We're hearing you, but really muffled at this time, all right? Just do that, my brother. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Let's do this from the brother Soul Puss, singing this one, On the Siege.
Me, that old champion farmer, I could be independent, was making money.
Dominican, so far so good. 2 minutes past 7 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of the space. We're having a very candid conversation here, free and fair elections in Dominica.
My ability to feed the family.
All the folks locked in at this time, thank you very much for your eyes and ears. The numbers to call the program, they are flashing across your screen right now, just in case you want to tune in or join in the conversation, all right?
Controlling all the money, and no justice in the land. Any man should take a stand.
Yes, we need to take a stand in 2024.
That only branch you say, not about opposition to government, to cut down from a farmer to a beggar, waiting on a monthly check, government welfare. This is no way for a man to live. Counting coins cannot afford a food, and I'm expected to forgive while I'm still living on the sea. See,
Dominicans, you're tuning to Civic Vibes at this time. The numbers to call 245-2396 or 615-9470. One more verse from Soul Puss, and we're gonna get back to the live panel here. Zed Lloyd being our guest.
Used to drive Land Rover, but today I take a bus to go everywhere. To you, I'm just another troublemaker. Go interview an enlist or a teacher, and then go talk to a trucker, a builder, or a contractor. Then talk to any bus driver. And if you're still not sure, you really need to see a doctor. It's about that olive branch you send, not about opposition to government. To cut down from a business owner to a beggar, waiting on a monthly check from government welfare. This is no way for a man to live. Can't buy a stove, cannot afford a fridge, and I'm expected to forgive while I'm still living on the sea.
Still living on the siege, the brother Soul Pools from the Marigot area. Yes, folks, the numbers to call if you want to call in, they are 245-2396 or 615-9470. These are the two numbers to get your voice or your contribution into the program. Let's get back to the live panel now as we continuing on right here, talking about free and fair elections for Dominica. Zed, are you back on it first?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're hearing you okay now.
Yes, we're hearing you now.
All right.
Yes, so Zed, in terms of where we left off before the break, you were going to make a point before. Can you delve into that point?
Yeah, I think, Lofty, people like Hillary and Brother Wayne need to be reutilized. I think the idea of bringing people to come to speak in Dominica needs to be utilized. The reason I think alternatives have to be taken into consideration is because we've had so much accumulation of things that have negated the involvement of the people. We need to take a different approach, and part of that different approach is maybe having a more educational process, bringing these speakers that are more general, more neutral. I mean, the brother Anil cool, but we maybe can find people who necessarily don't even have an antagonistic relationship with the organization, the government, or whatever, and bring them in. Like I said, I think the issues of kids, Antigua, and those things need to be utilized at a much higher level. We have those links. We need to exploit them. And bringing people that we can have a conversation to show that the disparity that is happening in terms of what Dominica is and what Dominica is for Dominicans. So while, yes, we addressing electoral reform, I vote for a much broader addressing. I think a much broader addressing will allow for a broader umbrella to work, and electoral reform will come under that umbrella. But I think if we're going to just simply stay refocused on electoral reform, I am not sure it's going to pick up the way it is supposed to pick up. And so I call more for that new approach by ERG, a more general educational approach, and more get people to come in and have conversation that is more neutral, more general, more objective than just the quasi-political concepts. Yeah, that is where I think we need to be heading in 2024.
But you see, Zed, if we present electoral reform in a textbook style, like we read the definition of electoral reform, blah blah blah, then yes, I agree what you're saying. But again, it's the messaging. We have to present it in such a way to show that this is what electoral reform looks like and entails, and how it impacts your daily life. The man on the street, the person who now cannot get elective surgery at the hospital, the student who can get a scholarship, the banana farmer who cannot, this is what it is. Because at the end of the day, the election and democracy is a twin. They are twin that conceive in the electoral process womb. That's basically what it is. So again, I understand if we bring it in that quote unquote academic type of thing, electoral reform. What the hell is electoral reform? What does that have to do with me? So that is where
we're saying the same thing, Marvin.
And we have to show, yes, it's electoral reform, but this is how electoral reform impacts your life as a young person, as a young man, as an ND, what do you call them, workers. This is the impact that it has on you. And I think that has to go with, as Lofty said, meeting the guy on the ground, sitting at by the bay at Woodford Hill or Sufri, as Scott said, or Cassie Bruce, or wherever it is, or St. Joe, and having that conversation.
But the people already know about electoral reform, We have to keep that in mind. They already know,
I don't agree with you. No, I don't agree with you. They've heard the term. They've heard the term mentioned, branded all over the place, electoral reform. But in terms of what it means to him or her, I don't think that message has got across. They've heard the term. Everybody uses
I don't think that is what is holding them back. I don't think that is what is holding them back, Alvin. Give me a minute. I don't think that is what is holding them back. It's the condition of you yourself talked about the condition of it is those external factors that is holding them back. It's not, and that's why I say what we have to empower is their spirit. It's not necessarily electoral reform. It's a new empowerment of spirit. And I think if we take the more approach that is of more general, invite and make them start feeling more comfortable collectively together and less of that polarization, we will begin breaking down that barrier. But I think if we go and just overemphasize just electoral reform, it will just be hitting their eardrums like it's been hitting them for the last 15 years. That's why I say utilizing Hillary and these guys from the commission to do those things and utilizing external speakers and other people's a multi-pronged approach so that what we are developing is a more conscientious citizen, not just factored on the issue of electoral reform, but that electoral reform will benefit from developing a more conscientious citizen. So, even if we can, we know we have this pastor thing and all those things, but we can bring spiritual speakers too. You have to reach a people through their mediums of least resistance. The mediums. I remember Tutu one time came, man, that was what, 90s, I maybe was in school. And Desmond Tutu talked about the spiritual pathway to liberation. And then he said something to the effect that it wasn't matter whether you believe or not, but because the people are so, they are more accessible to that spiritual medium, that the revolutionary process has to use that medium because these people are glued in that particular medium. So even those processes we have to use. You understand? So I'm saying we've been electoral reform. I think we need that broader umbrella, and electoral reform will follow under that umbrella, and it will benefit from developing a more conscientious citizen who you can easier access beyond that polarization process. Because we have a polarization process, and we cannot develop solution in absentia or in abstraction. We have to develop it in terms of what is there. And what is there is a polarized process. And so we have to now sit down and find a solution around that polarization process. We have to meander around it. So I'm saying for 2024, I like where this thing went, this brain of Anil. Let's bring others. I think there's leadership we need to bring here also. Real political leadership. Let us reach out to these people and come and have that conversation, because Dominicans know Roosevelt's spirit is not doing them right, Alvin. They know, it's not, I ain't know about Dominicans foolish and these people. We are not a foolish people. We are gripped in a cycle of fear.
Let's for the record state I have never and will
No, after all, Alvin, I'm not saying, nah, man, come on, brother. Right. What I'm saying is we're having a conversation of reality.
You're very smart.
And so what I'm saying is it's fear. It's fear. And just saying electoral reform is not addressing the fear. We have to find other pathways to liberate the citizens so that in their liberation, they can address these things, because they know these things are wrong. Dominicans are not that backward mentally.
So
Alvin, do you guys know who, when, and where was that term electoral reform coined?
Dominica.
I leave that for you guys research. And we will maybe get a better understanding why that has been eluding us for such a long time. But it's
like everything that was handed down to us. We were handed down a constitution. We were handed down certain things, and we're still
and I'm talking about a Dominican coined that term, electoral reform. It was coined in a certain place and a certain time for a particular reason or reasons. And Zed, I know you're a guy, you like to do your research, Alvin, I know you're a researcher yourself. Do your research, and we may find that by getting to know at least these three scenarios, then we'll come to understand why we are where we are for such a long time. Sure. But just to polish that up though, we don't want to lose sight or forget the fact that there is a man, Zed, who sits in the chair as Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit, who, by all what we have seen and heard from this brother, he has not given that will and that zeal to let Dominicans exercise their franchise in a much freer and fairer process. So the will on Roosevelt Skerrit's part is not there. Zed, from 2004, this brother became prime minister. Do you know the amount of bills that have been brought to parliament successfully at that? Passed, the eyes have it, and now they're operating. We are going through these bills as laws. They guide our lives. What is so different, Zed, about all of those bills passed before versus that one? So we have to keep that into a sharp focus as well. In addition to the man on the ground is not sufficiently, have that tooling that he needs to fight for it. There is this brother who doesn't seem to be so inclined to give the people or to make that enabling environment. Because let's look at it frankly. If a freer, I'm not using electoral reform, if a freer and fair electoral process was to be the benefiting factor or was to benefit the DLP and Roosevelt Skerrit, wouldn't that have been passed already in Parliament?
So I don't want to answer that question.
It is benefiting them now. Yeah. The way it is. That is why it has not been enacted as yet.
That is a fact. That is a fact. But let me ask you a question, Lofty. Let me ask a question. And how, based on what you've said, it seems to me that we have a tyrant / dictator ruling. So if that is what we have, do you expect a tyrant to give you the reform that you're asking for, to change your heart? So then what do we do? How do we deal with a tyrant or dictator if that's where we are?
You're saying the same thing.
I'm just asking.
No, you're saying the same thing that I'm saying. You just
use
the word tyrant.
So we will not get it. Forget that. We're not going to get it from him.
It is somebody that is
not going to get it.
It is somebody that is anti-democratic.
So we will not get it.
That has this thing limboing for so long.
Okay, so we will not get it. We know that for a fact. He's not going to give it to us. Hence, what do we do?
Alvin, I am saying, if electoral reform has to be a reality under this present regime, it is only by the pressure and the power of the people, nothing else.
I'm with you on that. But having said that, it's nice to say that. It's a lovely statement. It resonates with people who hear it. But how do we give that effect? That's where we have to go this year. The power of the people. So how do we get the people to exercise that power, to flex their muscles and to say, hey, it might start with a few, it might start with a dozen or whatever. How do we flex that muscle so that we can get this tyrant to either do it or get the tyrant out, whichever comes first?
Right. So all pressure.
Lofty,
yes, Ed.
Lofty, I come from the revolutionary school. I don't really, I don't worry about who I'm going up against.
I can tell you how we did it.
I don't worry about who I'm going up against, Lofty. I just plan within the strategy and what exists. And I think it's time we forget whether Roosevelt Skerrit has it or doesn't have it. We've been doing that for 20 years, and we have not overcome Roosevelt Skerrit. You understand? Let us focus on our people, man. Let us focus on our people. Let us focus on our people. Let us pool the things collectively. Let us pool them collectively. I think as much as we care about electoral reform and as necessary as it is, we need to begin having a much broader conversation with our people on the conditions of Dominica, a much broader conversation on a civic platform. I think that is critical, because if we just continue along the trajectory of just keep on beating the drum on the same thing, the people are going to keep getting zoned out the same way. And that is what it is. They're zoned out. And some decisions have been lapsed into. There were times when the people were ready and the organization not ready. Like I said, I like this new RPG concept. I hope they can link in with the other people and make it happen. But I think at this juncture in the struggle, it has to be about a different kind of educational and upliftment process. There are different sectors in struggle. And right now, I don't think it's the issue of just beating the horse. I think we need to have a sort of approach that can rebuild people's sense of spirit and hope and that kind of thing, and the rest will come. The rest will come, because Roosevelt Skerrit is going to teach package to that parliament, and he has 18-3. And I don't think we are going to raise the resistance of the people by just being about electoral reform. We have to be about more than that in critical juncture, so that we can get them to prepare to at least take a stand against this 18-3 minority in parliament. Because that's where these guys are going. That's where these guys are going. But we have to broaden the conversation, Lofty. It's my fundamental belief. Albin's been on the ground. I respect that. But to bring the people, not an issue of not knowing. It's an issue of people are gripped in a psychological cycle of feeling afraid of losing the little that they have. And we cannot address that by just ponging electoral reform. It needs a different psychological philosophy to overcome that.
All right, folks, it is 25 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. Let's take some comments now, Alvin and Zed, from the live feed. Persons have been commenting, persons have been talking to us through that medium there. We have Alistair Iris says here, sorry to say, but it must come at a cost, and is blood like it or not, no revolution can take, let me see what brother is writing, place without blood. And it's a fact, just to look back at history, some have to die for some to live, in my Malcolm X's voice. That is what brother Alistair Irish is saying here. October's very own says, so let us go after the gatekeepers like Thomas Later and Duncan Stowe. Gail Roy is writing there, there will be no free and fair and transparent electoral reform under this present regime. We know what we have to do, but we are too coward indeed. That is what Gail Roy is writing here. All right. We also have Adelaide Paul is writing here as well. How is the pressure applied then? That pressure that we spoke of earlier. Adelaide is asking that all important question of how, just how that pressure can be applied. Let me see if we have some other comments coming in here other than some persons I called before. We have Brother Dave Bertrand says, have we heard anything about the follow-up after the meeting with Anil Roberts? Is it a matter of two show, two flam? That is what Dave Bertrand is asking there. Althea Rennie is writing a point here. She says the parliament representatives only attempt to conduct town hall meetings during an election season in an effort to clarify all the wrongdoings of the country. But this approach has never worked, since opening the eyes of all the people cannot be a one-night attempt like an antidote. Change will come when town hall meetings become an ongoing process that ensures educating the people on the way forward becomes a priority. Is there anything you heard that you want to comment
exactly,
on so far?
Lofty.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. We have to be vibrant in the people, not just on electoral reform. For us to be able to pull them together to act on electoral reform. Because of polarization, it's almost an indirect process. Adi asked, how is the pressure going to be applied? Well, Adi, we've been trying for 20 years to apply the pressure, and it has not been able to be applied. So we have to think of preparing the people before applying the pressure. That's why I say, in many ways, it's a step backward to move forward. We have to develop a different kind of conversation with the people. It's not optional. True, where we are and going directly should be where we are. But we have not cultivated the culture that can make that happen. So we have to objectively realize that there is a conversation missing with the people. And we cannot come from that polarized podium to have the conversation with the people. Let the political parties keep their meetings. That is their duty. They should do their work. Let them mobilize their forces and mobilize their masses. That is their job. We need civic entity that addresses beyond these political lines for it to work. That is why we haven't worked. We need that. And Lofty, Brother Alvin came at you a while ago, and I remember when you left CCM, and you and I had many conversations over that. You know, and I also enforced. I think you needed to go back. And it was hard, I understood, you know, all these personal attacks and all those things. But man, let me tell you something, bro. The amount of personal attacks I just get, if I have to listen to that, I shut my mouth up 20 years ago. You know, yeah, man, revolutionary struggle, you have to like, them thing, you have to do them thing, just slide on you like oil. Like oil. I'm telling you, I have it down to a science right now, Lofty. You understand? Just you have to go back in there.
Let me just make a comment, for example, based on what Zed is saying. And because sometimes we refer to the 70s. You will say, oh, in the 70s you do that, blah, 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 blah.
Alvin, we are not tripping you. We were going for some comments. So
yeah, but I want to relate it to what Zed just said, because Zed made a comment there. And what I want to say is that even during the 70s, the political parties, namely the Freedom Party at the time, because UWP wasn't there at the time, and the Labour Party were on the fringe. You know who was at the front doing the work? The labor unions, the business sector, the church group, the youth group, the other group, what they call them, they used to call them the NDF or whatever, they with Para and Wiltshire and Pierre Charles, you know. These were the groups, you know, that were vocal, talking and making and raising the issues. Okay?
Yep.
The Freedom Party was on the fringe. They just have to benefit out of the activities work that took on the ground. And this is what has to happen. And I agree with you when you make the statement earlier, Lofty, that the political parties and they maybe have too much of a fingerprint. We have to get back where civic vibes come in and do maybe double what they've been doing. And the other groups, we had a group of what you call them, concerned lawyers or attorneys that was formed a year or two ago. What happened to that? Are they defunct? Are they dead? Are they no longer concerned? The labor unions, what happened to that? So that is where the conversation has to go on the messaging. And like Zeda said, meet the people on the ground. Do more listening and talking to them. Stop talking down to them and telling them what needs to be. Hear from them too. So I just wanted to make that point based on what Zed said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, thank you, Alvin. I personally think, Alvin, the 70s and 60s era compared to the 20th century folks era, that is a totally different era. And so I don't know. I don't know. The kind of activism and agitation I heard you guys keep speaking about in this time, my brother, Jesus Christ is not there to raise the dead anymore, at least in the flesh. So
we're going to get it done, man, Lofty. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. That's what we are looking at a
near impossible situation.
It's not that impossible.
No, we are looking at a near impossible, I said.
The advantage that I have, Lofty, is I'm old enough to know what obtained then and what obtains now. Unfortunately, you're not old enough to know what obtained then. You only know what obtained now. You know, and I'm saying so in all due respect, you know, an old fox like me saw the fight on the ground and seen the fight now. So you know, I can make some parallels.
Yeah, but Alvin, okay, if I should push back at you,
don't go there.
no,
Don't respond. Don't respond.
No, I'm going to respond. I'm going to respond. If I should push back on someone like you now, you saw what was, you seen what is now. I am sure, Alvin, you participated in some way, shape, or form in what was. Actively, that is, or passively, whatever role you had.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What is stopping a man like Alvin now to sort of be that bridge over troubled waters, as it were, to be that?
Well, I am totally engaged and committed. I said that I'm totally committed and engaged to do what needs to be done. I mean, part of it is that I'm living in the US. I'm no longer reside fully in Dominica. And like I said, I came to Dominica last month to make my eyes boil my peas. I came to make my eyes boil my peas at my own expense.
So do you think, Alvin, if a man like Alvin Thomas was in Dominica in the flesh, that things would have been different based on his engagement?
I can't say that.
I'm just asking.
I'm not a hero. I am not a hero. I'm not saying that in no stretch of the imagination. I'm not a hero.
I'm just asking,
so I'm not trying to say that.
What was the difference then and is not happening now? I just want to know for myself.
Well, I think we have to find a way to bring parties together and have that conversation. Like I said, I don't want to come on this program today and say, well, okay, I had conversation with John Brown, Harry Brown, whatever. But I will say to you that during that period I spent there, I was able to connect with a number of people. Those who are hearing me now know who they are. I won't call names, but they know. I was able to connect with a number of people. And even the conversation that I had, for example, I connect with my then union. I met with the hierarchy of the union. I met with quasi-politicians, if you may want to say so, people who have the ears and eyes of the Prime Minister. I had conversation with them. I had conversation with folks from the opposition party, both United and the Freedom Party. I had conversation with one or two businessmen in Dominica. So we have to find a way to bring these people together, to talk. I know you hear a lot of times that people come and the opposition and they say that the union not doing nothing and they lambaste the union and all of that. Okay, while that may be true, the question remains, have you engaged the guy? Have you tried to engage him and say, well, hey, bro, what are you doing? How can you lend to the struggle? Or how can you come in and be part of the struggle? As again, just staying on the side of the fence and throw in filth at the guy's face.
Alvin, just before Zed, let me ask Alvin a very important question there on that point. Alvin, do you think, brother, that the job of a union, it is to help topple a government to any government?
No, I don't think that's the job of the union to help.
What is the job of a union?
No,
because I asked that because
let me answer the question.
I asked that on the backdrop. When you speak to some Dominicans, even now, going through the struggle, and they place that extra burden as it on Thomas Lit and his crew,
no,
it is like as if the job the unions did back then, it must be replicated today.
No. The job of the union is not to topple a government.
What is the job?
The job of the union is to stand up for injustice in any shape or form, in the workplace, outside the workplace, and you as a political party or a politician must know how to leverage and engage the labor movement in a conversation that will help drive your cause and your purpose and your objective. Okay? That is what you got to do. And you have to find a way to do that. And you cannot want the labor union to do your work for you as a politician. Okay? If you go back and you learn the history of the involvement of the labor movement in the matter of what it affects the day-to-day lives of people, take it all the way back to the 1930s. If you want to go in the Moyne Commission, when that came out to the region, they met and spoke with a number of people, including the late E.C. Black, Nichols, who at the time was involved with the CSA, and several other trade union movements. And that is what people don't understand. The labor movement at that time, as way back then, felt in order to bring about effective change that would impact the lives of working people, that it is not just staying on the outside and calling for that change, but must do one or two things. They must ensure that people are elected in office that can effect the real change by the legislation that bring about improving labor standards, minimum wage, and the whole 9 years, blah, blah, blah. And also, at some point, they felt, well, if you can't do that, they need to get in parliament to effectively bring about that change for the people. That was the underlying reason. And that's why you find, if you go back in history, you will see in Barbados, in Guyana, Cipriani, Manly, you name it, you go all across the region. Bradshaw, St. Kitts, you go all about. You see, these were folks that were actively involved in the labor movement. At some point, finally got into parliament, where they felt they could make a significant impact that would affect the lives of people. So,
all right, Alvin. Yeah, Zed.
I think Zed dropped out. He's coming back.
Yeah, we lost Zed there for 1 minute or so. All right, Zed, yeah, you're going to make a point. Sorry that I had to ask Alvin that all.
Yeah, Lofty, I won't touch the political process. You know, the question came ago. You see, one of the things that the political process can do to help this change is to show a united front. One of the things that instead of just this idea of my party, I think Dominica is at a juncture where we're calling for statesmen more than politicians. What we need right now is statesmen. Not that they don't have political intent, not that they do not have need to form political parties, but their primacy must be good statesmen. And you see, if we can show a collective united front politically, it can impact the people in a civic sense more positively than how that isolated concept has been impacting them more negatively. And I say this, as we come on this juncture, it's very important. There's two other political parties in Dominica. People seem to be taking it as a divisional process. I want us to hold it by its neck and around properly and make sure we set it objectively. It doesn't matter how many political parties in the country already. It really doesn't matter. As long as the political parties are conscious of what is facing them and what is facing the whole political process for change in Dominica is almost possible to beat Labour Party. And so instead of talking about this, well, we just work as political parties, I really want us in this era start thinking about working collectively as parliamentarians who can win, whether in political parties or not. Because you see, if you cannot come and win parliamentary seats, electoral or no electoral form, the change for men that is necessary in the country is not going to take. And so I want these groups and these individuals and all these conscientious who are thinking about concepts in their minds. It is not just a question of a political party, because if you are just a political party, empirical power and parliamentary empowerment, you are nothing in the political process. Nothing in the political process. So when we think of these things, I want these people to think of these things first individuals. First as individual statesmen. Can I win a constituency? Can I bring a parliamentary win into that table? Because that is what is going to have to be the conversation at this point of a next election, where this collective can sit together and look at themselves objectively and look at constituency by constituency, make an objective choice in the interest of nation. Do my candidate have a better choice of winning Colio, or this candidate over there has a choice of winning Colio? That is where the conversation has to go on that political platform. And I really want us, through Civic Vibes, as we engage and we engage these politicians, first to make sure that we we develop that dialogue, because it is important that we develop that dialogue. Because if people can come to the table and win, it doesn't make sense coalescing and talking about working together. You have to bring substance to the table as a political entity for you to be of value in this current political process.
Yeah, I concur with you, Zed. Thank you very much indeed. Folks, it is already 17 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. And as said earlier, we just want to dovetail now a little bit, still sticking to free and fair elections, but one of the symptoms when free and fair electoral process is not existent or non-existent in the country, we have situations like what we're facing today, our health crisis in Dominica. And right about now, folks, I just want to read to us, those of you who have not seen it yet or heard it yet, in terms of a situation that has been with us for some time, our lack of medical supplies at our health care facilities across the country. I'm going to read a communique that came out last week, Thursday, from the hospital authority in Dominica. And then I'm going to play us a response from the man who's supposed to be in charge of our hospital and healthcare business in Dominica. That is none other than Mr. Cassani Laville, that is. And also thereafter, I'm going to give you, in his perspective, Dr. Dale Dangleben's interpretation of why we are where we are in our healthcare situation. It says here, the communique says, Dominica Hospitals Authority, that's the heading of it, Office of the Hospital Medical Director. And it is, I'm hearing a reverb. Either Zed, you or Alvin, you're playing that audio. I'm hearing myself.
Must be Zed. Zed, mute your mic. Zed,
yeah. Can you mute your mic, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, cool. I was hearing myself. Thank you. It says memorandum from the hospital medical director, and it is directed to a number of doctors, Dr. Julian De Amas, Dr. Adrian De Chaussee, Dr. Theodore Thomas, Dr. Korak Frederick, Dr. Giovanni Castilla, Dr. Kirsten George, Dr. Bianca Roberts, Dr. Anik Monel, Dr. again Diane Robinson Armour, Dr. Nancy Lawrence, Dr. Sandra Winograd-Lear, Dr. Lee Ben, Dr. Lou Bella. And that, as I said, that communique was addressed to all these doctors on the 11th of January 2024. That is Thursday, just gone. It says reference, temporary cancellation of elective surgical lists. Now, folks, for those of you listening, elective surgery means basically surgeries that are not life-threatening, okay? And so that is what that communication talks about here. It says here, I regret to inform that due to significantly diminished supplies of pethidine as well as spinal needles, elective surgical lists will have to be temporarily suspended effectively Monday, January 15th, 2024. It continues by saying some minor cases and cases involving the lower limb may be able to be accommodated. Any elective cases being requested must, and that must was underlined, therefore be discussed prior to submitting names with Dr. Becky John Baptist, that is the OIC anesthesia. You will be informed as soon as the situation is rectified. Be assured that significant efforts are being made to remedy the situation. Best wishes, and that note was signed by the hospital medical director, and that is Dr. Ruby Blanc. All right, so folks, that is the communique that came out of the hospital, the lack of medical supplies, some medical supplies. And what I am getting, folks, that communique, it was leaked to the public. It was leaked to some people in the public domain. And so hence that communique made its way on social media. And from since then, a number of persons have been responding, especially the Minister of Health in Dominica, that is Mr. Cassani Laville. Okay, folks, so you heard me read that communique. I'm now going to let you listen now to the response of the Minister of Health in Dominica in the name of Mr. Kasani Laville. Take a listen. Try and make sense of what your Minister of Health is saying as a result of that leaked communique, the lack of some medical supplies.
Greetings to all. I would like to bring to your attention an important issue related to a letter circulating on social media. This letter discusses the temporary suspension of elective surgeries, citing low supplies of spinal needles and pethidine as the reason behind it. Today, I aim to discuss the implications of this incident and the steps that must be taken to resolve the situation. I must express my deep concern that a decision of this magnitude directly impacting patient care was made without proper consultation and approvals. In the Dominica Hospitals Authority Act of 2021, the board's primary function is to coordinate the administration and operation of the authority. Notwithstanding, it's the board's responsibility to make recommendations to the minister on the development of the authority and the services provided at designated health facilities. It is therefore alarming to witness such a crucial decision being made without following the established guidelines of the Act. The lack of communication regarding the shortage of essential medical supplies also highlights an oversight in stock management of essential supplies. Furthermore, the absence of documented decisions, alerts, or recommendations leading up to this situation is particularly concerning. I would have met with hospital management twice in the last 8 days. This is on January 5th with the Honorable Prime Minister and on January 8th. Not once did this matter come up. So it is deeply concerning that I would find out about this on social media. As a country, we must be careful about how we address matters and seek to solve problems. I have given a mandate for the implementation of the electronic logistic management system to be operational by February 16th, and the responsible agencies within the ministry will be held accountable. I would like to emphasize recent incidents where drugs were required to treat a particularly rare case. We were able to obtain the drugs through special arrangements with neighboring islands and expedited shipment arrangements provided by the Regional Security System, RSS. In another incident in the past month, we have had to solicit facilitation again from RSS to collect samples for testing at CARFA laboratories due to the urgency and sensitivity of a matter being investigated. These instances underscore the importance of proper oversight and communication in addressing critical matters within the health system. The ministry and cabinet are ready to provide support in facilitating such arrangements when necessary. Given the gravity of this situation, I urgently request that the board, the CEO, and the hospital medical director convene a meeting to address the following issues. 1. Unauthorized issuance of the letter. We need to investigate and address the circumvention of proper approval protocols in the issuance of the letter related to hospital services. 2. Lack of communication and oversight. We must examine the failure in communication and oversight regarding the stock management of essential medical supplies. 3. Documentations of decisions. It is essential to establish a documented progression of decisions, alerts, and recommendations related to stock shortages and critical issues. 4. Patient confidentiality. We need to foster a culture of confidentiality, as patient confidentiality is sacrosanct. I have therefore requested feedback from the board within 2 days, in which time they will launch an investigation. This timeline allows for prompt resolution and effective communication to address these pressing issues. With a clear distinction, our system allows the doctors the privilege of conducting private surgeries within the hospital setting. However, under certain circumstances, it becomes necessary to temporarily suspend these private operations to meet the demands of performing critical and elective surgeries within the public hospital system, especially when stock availability is low or when there are marked increases in urgent cases. These measures are standard practice aimed at ensuring the equitable delivery of healthcare services. To avoid any misconceptions, I would like to clarify that the suspension of elective surgeries does not apply to all surgical procedures, but primarily affects non-urgent procedures that can be delayed. For example, most cases of tonsillectomy may be regarded as elective surgery. On the other hand, an emergency surgery performed to remove an inflamed or infected appendix is considered a non-elective surgery due to its necessity in addressing a medical emergency. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate my concerns regarding the unauthorized issuance of the letter and the lack of communication and oversight in stock management. The meeting I have requested between the board, CEO, and hospital medical director aims to address these issues and prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. The Ministry of Health remains committed to providing quality health services while upholding proper governance and transparency. Thank you for your attention.
Alvin, Zed,
Yes.
was this
Yes.
was this response from your Minister of Health?
My minister. You looking me caca this afternoon.
Was it adequate, Zed? Was it adequate, Alvin? Was it adequate, folks, in terms of a response?
Zed talking?
Zed is
muffled. Zed is muffled.
Oh, Zed has a feedback coming back. Zed, you're listening to us on your device. Please mute.
Zed, we're not hearing you clearly, Zed. You're muffled. He's there.
Alvin, can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Yeah,
yes.
we're hearing you now. But you're muted. Your mic is showing mute. Go ahead. I'll come in after. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I hear. My video has stopped.
Okay, and in just a while, we're going to play Dr. Dale Dangleben's, interpretation of what that communique emanating out of the hospital said.
All right, Lofty. So Lofty, you know what is interesting, and you just have to give analysis, and you know when bullshit is being spoken. He goes through the whole letter thing and the unauthorized process and everything, and at the end, he makes justification for elective surgeries and suspension of surgeries. So even in his defense, there's a reality of the need to suspend surgeries in Dominica. You understand? Which says you're already aware that you have a stock problem in terms of medicine. So he contradicts his own self in simple summary. But this lettering is to ensure that this thing gets muffled. It's part of the whole psychological process that we spend the last hour and a half talking about, that disempowers people. This letter is to make people know you cannot do that again, otherwise we go into, you understand? This is what is happening here, psychological warfare. You understand? But this guy, he knows what's happening at the hospital. He knows that the hospital is not up to standard and our health system is not up to standard. Irvin McIntyre, the doctor, couldn't correct it. This engineer is not going to correct it. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Yeah. Lofty?
Yes, sir.
All I will say on that is that is disgraceful, shameful, and I think the minister should resign. Okay? Clearly, again, like I said earlier, election has consequences. If you put square pegs in wrong hole, that's what you're going to get. It seems to me that based on the way the minister has, articulated the position, he doesn't know what the hell is happening in the health ministry and in the health service. So as a result, he should resign. It clearly comes across again that when you're in leadership and you have leadership position, you have to learn to take responsibility. You must take the responsibility for your subordinate. And even where your subordinate may have acted in a particular way, you have to come as minister and say, you know what, I take responsibility and move on to do what you need to do. But he's abdicating. As far as he's concerned, he has no responsibility in the matter. He has duties, and he's saying he wants to call meeting, he wants to do this, but duties goes with responsibility. The two go hand in hand. And it comes across in the same way that the general manager of Dominica was treated by the prime minister when the general manager came and put the matter to the people in terms of what was going on in Dominica, the fact that we had a generator that was as old as 35 years old. What happened? She was thrown under the bus. Eventually, she resigned. So that is a kind of behavior you see coming across.
Yeah.
And it is really disgraceful. It is shameful. And election have consequences. And that is the price you pay when we put the wrong people. First of all, we elect the wrong people. And then on top of that, we put the square pegs in the wrong hole. We end up like that. I think the minister should resign.
All right. Resignation, Alvin is calling for. All right, folks, let us know here, at least from Brother Dale's Dangleben's perspective, what he understood that letter, that communique, that leaked communique, I must add, to the public, the lack of medical supplies in Dominica. Let's take a little listen to Brother Dangleben, and we'll come back for our wrapping up comments.
You know, I woke up to this news about Dominica and the lack of pethidine. So no surgery will be done in the upcoming days, and no spinal needles. And it's so sad that, you know, I'm lost for words. And it's interesting that Ruby Brown would put out such a letter. So let me just tell you guys quickly. I want to make this very quick. Pethidine is Demerol. Demerol has been avoided in the United States for many, many years. I don't remember using Demerol for maybe at least 10 years. It has a very poor profile, right? As a matter of fact, if you look up Demerol, it will tell you that, you know, there's a toxic metabolite, meaning that when it's breaking down in your system, it breaks down into a compound, normeperidine, which if you have kidney disease or liver disease, it sticks around and it increases your seizure threshold. It increases the chances of you having delirium. So it really should be avoided in any elderly patients by any means. And that has been shown. So not a lot of use in the United States anymore, right? So why is your whole surgical caseload dependent on Demerol? There have been so many options that can be used, right? And then for anesthesia, remember, it's not just there's general anesthesia. What happened to general anesthesia, right? I mean, what about things like, you know, Versed? What about Diprovan? There's so many different options that we use up here for conscious sedation. And to say that you're suspending all surgery because of one medication and the lack of needles shows that your health system is a failed system. And it's sad because it seems that not just the rest of the whole world has left us behind. The whole world has left us behind, and it's just rather shameful that I'm waking up to this news. How can you run out of spinal needles and a medication that your system depends on? How can you run out of that? But you have money to sponsor everything out there that is not related to health. Shame, 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 shame. And I'm embarrassed. I'm very, very embarrassed.
Medical doctor Dale Dangleben out of Dominica, doing very good work for, you know, persons out there, and is not allowed to be doing work for his people. Guys, your final thoughts as we bring this program to a wrap. We may want to engage Brother Dale Dangleben maybe sometime in the future.
No, I think Brother Dale is on the money. I mean, it's like saying, Lofty, that you are prescribed a particular, let's say, a blood pressure medication or cholesterol. And what I'm hearing there, it seems that as the only drug that can be used for surgery. And Brother Dale rightly put it, that there are several other alternatives and options that could have been obtained, and not necessarily that particular drug. So clearly, it's much more than that. It's the fact that there's no goddamn money to buy no drugs, supplies. There's problem with their inventory management or whatever the case might be. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a much deeper issue than that, than not just having that particular drug. And that's why I said it is very shameful that that the minister should come and kind of throw the medical director under the bus, which is what he did. He threw under the bus, like been the case with several other persons. But you see, that's what you get when you put persons like that in those leadership positions, in the person of the Minister of Health. That's the kind of results that you get. But let me just conclude by saying that I think we had a very engaging conversation this evening, and even from the live, people made some really good comments and showed, you know, a sort of path forward. But like I said in the opening of my comments this evening, I think this year is the year of reckoning for us in Dominica. There's a lot of talk going all around. Talk on Q95, talk on Kyrie, talk on DBS, talk on Global View. I mean, you name it, talk all over the place. But I think we have to get down to really taking some sort of action. I know, Lofty, this is going to be a much challenging year for you. I really want to, in all sincerity, commend you and compliment you for the work that you've been doing over the years and last year on the ground, yourself and the other soldiers, people like Paula, you know, persons in NJAM, and a host of other persons, name, you know, that I can't even well mention here. So you guys are in the fire, feeling the heat. You're in the kitchen, actually, in the kitchen, sorry, feeling the heat. But this year may be even a more challenging year for yourself. I have said also that the challenge that we face back home is not just a challenge for folks back home. I think those of us in the I kind of reluctantly now want to use that word diaspora. I have to find another word. They said might have to help me with one. But those of us overseas, Dominicans overseas, wherever we may be, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in America, have to lend to that struggle. It's not going to be, we can't just leave it up to Lofty and the guys on the ground. And in whatever way we can, we have to find a way to collaborate and to do what needs to do to save Dominica. I think Sister Rosie puts it very well in her presentation when she speaks. She refers to Mad Dominique. That's her passion. That's her underlying reason. Save Mad Dominique. And I think this year is the year we really have to do it. How does that come? Is it going to come in electoral reform? It's going to come in other formats. It's going to whatever it takes. But I think this year must be the year of reckoning. And I'm committed, as in my little way that I can, to give my little 5 cents. And I'm sure the many folks on our feed are as well committed, because they come here every Sunday. Every Sunday, they religiously come here and sit through the program with us and make their comments. So that is commendable. Yeah. We may not always agree with all the views that they express, but that is what a democracy is all about. Let all ideas contend. So I'm happy to have my brother Zed on the program tonight. Let's make this year an action year. Let's talk more action and figure out the best way to do that.
All right, Alvin, thank you very much indeed for your closing comments here. Brother Zed Lloyd, yes, your closing comments. Nice having you tonight, brother.
Well, brother, we started the new year talking about solutions, you know, and I'm glad that we keep it on that track. And that is what we're going to be about. It's not going to be about useless talk and personalizations. We're going to stick on this mission of solutions, because that's the way forward. And I think the health thing just highlighted what we were trying to explain here tonight. which is there's a broad palette of issues that we can coalesce a movement around instead of just electoral reform. It's exactly the issue right there. That's why I say let's bring a variety of people, not just on electoral reform. Let us find leaders, let us find people, let us bring them to speak with the people, and let us build their consciousness on a broader palette than just electoral reform, and it will benefit electoral reform. Because as once we raise the consciousness of the people and we make them stop being afraid of this establishment, it's over, you know, because by and large, Dominicans are not happy with what is going on in Dominica. You hear the people, you see them on the street talk one thing, they're in my inbox talking a different thing. And I'm telling you, man, it's serious people, serious laborites who reach out to me and speak, you know, and I'm happy that we're doing some of the speaking that we're doing. So there's not a consensus of happiness in the country. There's a consensus of fear. A consensus of fear. And I say it over and over again, that the conditions are right for the removal of this government. It is just that we have not coalesced in the proper manner. And so these issues like the health, the employment, the lack of payment, the people are owed. NEP workers are owed, man. NEP, the lowest strata of payment by the government to working people, is owed money by the government. By the government. So there is a problem of cash, and I keep telling them guys that from like 2-3 years ago, the government does not have money, and it does not have money because the money that was collected from these passport sales are being used as a bank, a revolving bank. That is what these guys have been doing with that money. So it's not that. So the money is not there to give to the government. And so all these things, and they're going to continue. And what you will see happen is changing of people so that people would not speak. Like this approach on this letter, that is what is going to go on across the board. So nonsense is going to be happening inside, that people are not going to be able to speak out on it because of fear of their jobs. And I want to applaud whoever leaked that letter. We need to have some more leakings on all fronts. On all fronts. And so what my call out again, Lofty, is for statesmen. Statesmen. Those who are interested in the political process, we need to get together and speak. We need to get together and speak. We need to start consensus building long before Roosevelt carried us any election in Dominica. Let us cross these borders. Let us talk to each other. Reach out. Reach out. Try to reach people in your constituency that you think can win a seat. Talk to them. Talk to them, because what we need now are winners, not players, winners. Dominica is ripe for a change of governance. It is ripe for a change of governments. Peace and blessings, and thanks to people for listening tonight. God bless.
Look, business. Enough business.
That's it, folks. That's it. We started with King Dice, Wanted Man. We're going to end with Trilogy, Nasty Business.
On the mic, it's Thriller on the mic again. When I see the crown and my name go down inside of the history book. I had self-doubt when Fado found and say it was just a fluke. She claimed that we Bouillon boys have no place in Daiso Sanctuary because lyrically we are so nasty and continually disgrace the country. And while some may agree, but we really entirely rich Kenich or even Suki for the decay in society. When monsters on our back talk in rap and we still clap, that is nasty business. Ole a lay up one, but have to shake your pamparam, that is nasty business. When the boss say open that, but that's not in your contract, that is nasty business. They block in your hustle if you don't work your little muscle, that is nasty business. When a child is sent to study, might send it to a D40. Nasty business right there, and we're trying to see.
Yeah.
No, we need to start to ball on, but is it because of what that you song? Wake me up, cause I'm a dreaming. Well,
Good, the boy.
That's the Calypso reigning monarch of Dominica King Trilogy. Calls this one Nasty Business.
This is no joke. Nasty business.
That is it. Look,
Yeah,
Calypso
I can
season,
only watch
people.
so long, man.
what's my name? It's Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic again. Deep introspection and true conversation will reveal so much nastiness. One election will show that the common man was really an agent.
What kind of questions
of
that?
greediness. We are forced to live in the dark because of misplaced priorities. Utility companies and government agencies bringing this poor country right down to its knees. Who will lead that virtuous song? We need a champion to turn us around. Not one that will cut down the comments and join them on stage for best. Wolf festival, but no medicine hospital. That is nasty business. Throwing your dirty hand in for people credit union. That is nasty business. Working AM to PM, yet we can enter your realm. That is nasty business. We put the boat on the sea, or we hop the plane just to flee. That is nasty business. The economy not gripping, while the bomber they were crying. Them nasty business right there, man, is so glaring. Now look the real resign. Is it because of Kenny G lines? Wake me up, cause I must be dreaming. Wait.
All right, Dominica, thank you very much for your eyes and ears for yet another Civic Vibes program. See you guys next week Sunday, same time, same place. Last verse from Trailer, and we are out.
That is it. Hey, what's my name? Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic again. We cannot be soft on men of the clock who forsake their integrity. Once the church is lost, the ultimate cost is the erosion of morality. From parents to teachers at school and officers who enforce the rules, we must not be slack. Let us face the fact that our young minds are under attack. No more games with the enemy. We need to safeguard our family. If good morals and values we choose, then nasty business will lose. Hey! No spiritual contraband, risk and not bless man and man. That is nasty business. Parents don't beat your child because when you send them wild, that is nasty business. Police don't break the law, sell drugs and go back talk, cause that is nasty business. Bad teachers get no pass when you crash outside the class. That is nasty business. So do not try to ignore and say it not in front of your door. When all of us in nasty business for sure. Another business close, but it's nice alone getting close. Please wake up, Vado, wake up and stop Sooty Wayne.
Vado, wake up and stop Sooty Wayne. Folks, thank you very much for your eyes and ears. Brother Zed Lloyd, thank you very much. And the Civic Vibes team, thank you. Bye-bye.
Look, business, that is it. Huh. It's Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic. It's Trailer on the mic again.
Really like them.
If you can fix like that before you go, that would be great. Don't put anything heavy in the drawers.
There's nothing heavy in the drawer.
This was heavy. This computer there.
Yeah, that computer can't sing that tune.